I want to welcome everybody. I'm going to get started, and we are recording today, and y'all continue to jump in. This is our third piece, our third session on diagnosing the digital divide. My name is Melody Morgan, and I want to thank each of you for joining us today. With me today is Don Benton, Assistant Commissioner of Research and Technology at the Department of Education and Secondary DESE. I'm just going to say DESE, Don.
Yes, just say that.
Yeah, and several additional great technology leaders from both our organizations and from across the state. APSRC and DESE have partnered to bring together some great technology leaders from across our state to share innovative practices and strategies that will address digital learning gaps and ensure equitable learning opportunities with technology. We hope today's session on diagnosing the digital divide will lead to deeper and richer discussions and solutions on a regular occurring basis and ultimately improve learning opportunities and outcomes. Today, in addition to Don and I, we have Ray Girdler from the department that's going to be presenting, Kendall Wells from our organization, and Gina and Trent. And we have a guest presenter, Jeff Medlock from Hope School District. And you guys know it's real informal. This is for you. What you get out of this is the best thing we can say about this whole opportunity on our third session. We have a living chat. Trent's going to be the moderator. So anytime you want to put your questions out there, if you need, we want you to engage with us, right, Don? We want it to be an engagement for you guys. And from that, I want to head on. So this has been like a really big topic. I'm going to hand this over to Ray, and he's going to introduce this piece. This seems to be the piece that keeps bubbling up from our first two sessions. Ray, can you take it over from here?
I can. So yesterday, or last time we met, so that wasn't yesterday, but several weeks back, we talked about security tools. One of the tools that came up was GoGuardian. And Jeff Medlock seemed to know a little bit about it and seemed to pique a little bit of interest. So I'm going to let Jeff jump in and share what he has to share. And then we'll kind of piggyback off him and carry the conversation and see where we go.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. And Jeff, you should be able to pull anything up and go with it.
Okay, thank you. I'll share my screen really quick. Give me just a second to find my way over there.
You give us a great lead in with what you're going to talk about.
Okay. This is my little 2-slide presentation because it'll go pretty quick. Which do you guys see the GoGuardian screen? I hope.
Yeah, we see the screen. Jeff, is your mic positioned properly?
Oh.
Your sound.
I was going to say audio's kind of low.
There you go.
There we go.
How's that? That's probably a lot better. There you go.
There we go.
I'm just a tech guy, man. Don't ask me to do the tech
Hey, we
stuff.
Call each other out in these meetings. That's what we're supposed to do.
Okay. So you guys see I guess you see the GoGuardian website. Is that what you see right now?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I just want to make sure that's what we're looking at. So GoGuardian, we use it here, and part of the reason that we use it here is let me get rid of this one screen here. Boop. All right. So I think everybody can see this screen now.
Well, hold up, Jeff. You might have it extended. We're just seeing the desktop background.
Okay, give
That's
me a
all we're
second.
seeing.
All right. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
I'm like everybody else. I've got 75 screens here on this one right here. So
You can't go wrong.
There we go. It's back in the screen now.
okay, good deal. All right, there we go. Awesome. So GoGuardian, we used it here now for almost 5 years. Once we went to Chromebooks, this was kind of the best way we could handle it. They've added a lot of features since we first come on with them. We mainly got it because of the content filtering and its ability to do that with an extension that's easily added to the Chromebooks from Google Admin. So we can push that extension, and that's the way it handles content filtering and everything from the teacher remote classroom to anything that has to do with Chromebooks. It does use DNS filtering so that you can do it to all of your devices, but we already used the state's filter for that, so we didn't see any need of running 2 DNS filters. We dropped all of the other firewalls we've ever used once the state moved us to Umbrella. We find it it does exactly what it's supposed to do. We use GoGuardian as our first line of defense for Chromebooks. The content filtering screen is pretty wonderful, and I think I can show it to you without showing you any student information and things like that. Actually, I probably won't because it does have some student information on it. But the screen that the administrators can pull up is a full-blown screen that shows you how many students are currently online, what your top websites are, what your top videos are, what your top searches are. It even has this feature called Beacon. And Beacon is the students at risk piece. Every other alternate one has something like that. The students at risk, it monitors keywords, it monitors searches, and lets us know if a student is looking at self-harm or dealing with bullying or anything like that. It also looks for, we have a few rules set up in Beacon for really explicit things along the lines of pornography or any kind of threats like that. The real nice piece is that for each site in every campus and every grade level, those rules, those little beacons there, they alert the correct people. So if it needs to send an email to all of the principals of a certain campus, that's exactly what it does. If it needs to get in touch with a social worker, then it sends it to the social worker so that they can actually take care of that, or a resource officer or anything like that. So we really like that one. I skipped teacher because I'm going to go back to it. The fleet piece is Chromebook tracking, assigning and reporting. It's very nice. We use it Poco and Poco just a little bit. We use it to actually track in case someone calls and says we've got one missing. We can then put it as stolen, and once it pops up on the net somewhere, it immediately gives us a location and things like that. We talked about DNS filtering, and let's talk about the teacher remote classroom management and conferencing software. The remote management, classroom management, is all based off Google Classroom, or the teachers can build it to just their specifications of how they want to build their own class. We love the ability that it brings in Google Classroom. So if you already have a Google Classroom, then you can open up your remote classes in GoGuardian, and there's the kids, there's their screens. You're watching in real time where they're going. You can apply white lists, you can apply black lists, you can do anything you want to that classroom. You can focus everyone in on the same website, you can focus them in on the same document. For Chromebook, it's pretty amazing. The new conferencing software they put in is a lot like Zoom. That way you can conference one-on-one, you can do it with the entire classroom. It's all in-house with the remote classroom in GoGuardian. They just added a new feature which we thought was really cool. You can annotate live now as a teacher onto other students' screens in the conference. So you can pick a student and circle a certain button or thing like that. That's pretty neat feature right there that they've added. The last but not least is the parent app. The parent app just came out. It comes with the full suite. And what it allows our parents to do is when they're off hours, inside GoGuardian, we can define school hours and off hours. The parents take over in the off hours, and they can limit their no internet whatsoever, turn it all off if they want to. They can specify their own whitelist of where they can go. They can monitor the top sites that their students are going to. They can also see when they're in school if they've gotten in trouble in the classroom, if they've been blocked from a site, where they're traveling 24/7. We now have I'd say we have about 40% of our parents using the app now, and they extremely love that part of it. The ability to control what their kids are doing outside of class and to know what they're doing in class. So that's GoGuardian. I told you I wouldn't take too long. I'd hit it really quick and get off of it. But I did make sure that I didn't want to leave anybody out. But these are alternate service providers, and I'll share this list with you, Melody, and we can put it inside the presentation. Lightspeed systems, line-wise, we've seen a lot of that being talked about on the sysadmin list. It's a very good piece too. Land School, Impero, and Hapara. That's just a few of them. They all pretty much do the same thing. Some of them work a little bit better than the others. They are all using DNS filtering pretty much to handle their content filtering, which if you're not using it, well, you should all be using. Umbrella's perfectly fine in getting the job done for us here in the state, and give a shout out to DIS for doing that for us some time ago. But if you're looking for something in place of that, just to be like your front line of defense for SIPA, and for your teacher and staff to be able to bop back and forth with their own whitelists and blacklists, that's a great way to do it. Some of them work on multiple platforms. I understand now that GoGuardian will work on that, has an app out and an extension or something like that along that line for Windows. So it will do the same thing it does for Chromebook for Windows-based operating systems. One last thing I'll tell you is that lately, for years, I believe one way that this would best be done, and since all of our teachers are always turning in lesson plans and all that kind of good stuff that they're supposed to be turning in lesson plans, we should actually just allow them to create their own whitelist. We should block everything and then only open what needs to be opened. And I know some people don't go along with that, but having done this for a long time in school settings, I believe it might be time to start looking at that. We know exactly where they need to go and where they don't need to go. And I'll just let you know, we shut YouTube off April 1st, and it wasn't an April Fool's joke, but we actually shut YouTube off from the students, and we sent all of our teachers through the Arkansas Digital Sandbox. If you don't use it, use it. It's wonderful. So we sent all of our teachers through that because that is open, and that way they can provide all the YouTube they need to their students through the digital sandbox, and we didn't have to open up YouTube. So just looking today, we've only had 15 views on YouTube today by students. So that's a huge, we were averaging 200,000 a day is what we were averaging of, stuff. And that was just, fodder that didn't need to be there, so we thought we'd shut it off. And so I can definitely tell you that that's turned out really well for us. Our teachers like it. The kids are now not listening and goofing off in class. They're actually engaged, so that's actually a really big deal. Any questions that maybe I can try to answer for anyone?
No,
Hey,
but
Jeff, I do have one.
Okay.
So I was looking at your list of all the other product providers, and I get a lot of questions at state level. What's the best product? Well, first of all, I want to tell the whole group that we're not endorsing any product, but could you tell me what stood out about GoGuardian above some of the other products that maybe some of the attendees might want to know?
You sure can. They were the first on the scene that was doing the most. We've done a lot of stuff here. We were with JAMP forever, using it for MDM way back 12 years ago when they first came on the scene. We've always kind of jumped in first to just see how the water is. They were actually doing more than anyone else to us right out of the kicker, and they did exactly what we needed for the Chromebook. And that's what I guess, looking at the names here, I know most of these people here, we've all been doing this a long time, and we've gotten to the point where we know if I need a banana, I'm just going to buy a banana. We don't need to buy a whole fruit basket. We just need a banana. And I think that that's the biggest deal, is to really go out, ask questions, contact the other administrators around the district, around the state, and ask them what they're using. Most sites now have a comparative up somewhere that says, this is us compared to Lightspeed, or this is us compared to GoGuardian. I would definitely look at what you're looking for. We're seeing this in our department. We see what they all use. A second grade teacher only sees, this much, and a high school teacher only sees this much. They don't see the same thing. So we kind of know what we're looking for. I can tell you that GoGuardian, they've been really good to us. Their pricing has dropped consistently every year. They realize that it costs us so much to license Google now that they're trying to, give us a little bit more price break, which I think everybody's doing that. Like I said, you don't want to get so much that you're not using. That's just it. I mean, if Impero is an amazing product, but it's just like, lots of bells and whistles, and that was way too much for us. We couldn't have just used it all, so it would kind of been wasted money. So that's a big one. There's a place called status.goguardian.com, and that actually is an operational status report. But what's neat about it is it kind of shows you everything they do. It gives you a list of all their products and what's going on. And much like Google, you can check it daily to see if there's anything down, what's going on. We kind of just like their ease of use, and it's, looking at their interface, there's 5 things I need to click, so I don't have to do a lot. Same thing goes for LineWise. We've been actually looking at it because there's been so much talk about it. It's got a very, very, very nice user interface on it, so I would highly recommend, if you're looking for a cost-effective, small piece, that would be a good one.
So from the implementation aspect, it's pretty easy.
It's 2 pieces of link code that you put inside your Google admin and drop it to the OU that you got your Chromebooks in, and boom, you're done. Okay. So that's pretty much it, and it's all taken care of. We actually push the same thing kind of for some of the Macs in the labs for their Chromes also, so we're pushing it across the Chrome, the chromosphere, I guess you'd say.
And a reminder to everyone, you can use your ESSER funds to purchase GoGuardian moving forward.
Well, and I understand now that there's a talk with E-rate. E-rate's changing its rules, so we might see some really cool changes coming up on that one. That's probably for discussion down the road.
Yeah, fingers crossed on that one.
I still am a pretty big Impero liker, but I use it for my Windows devices, and I'm switching over to GoGuardian for my Chrome devices. It was just much easier to use. Just backing up what Jeff was saying, for Impero, it takes care of lots of problems with PCs. But if you're not doing PCs, it's kind of like or everything is if you're a hammer, everything's a nail. And I'm moving to GoGuardian for the Chromebooks.
There you go.
So are you looking at saving some funds as well on that transition?
Not really, because I'm going to keep Impero for my PCs.
Well, if it's Coke approved, then we all could see you can sleep soundly. I would definitely say that. So,
Well, Jeff, I think you generated as much conversation around GoGuardian as you did about shutting down YouTube, man. There's a question out there for you that says, how do you get that buy-in from the teachers to shut it down? You want to share your trick?
This is my 28th year, and I walked into the superintendent's office and I said, "Hey, I'm going to shut down YouTube just to see what happens for a month." The teachers have been turning in since we use Lincoln Learning and we're doing this. I actually read all the teacher. I've been helping with the curriculum end of it, so I read all the teacher lesson plans. So I said, it should be in a lesson plan, and if it's in a lesson plan, then we'll open it up. But the ADE Digital Sandbox, my sysadmin sent out a how-to to do that months ago, and we had a huge buy-in in it. A lot of teachers have been using it, so we were kind of prepping the water anyway. So when we turned it off, we didn't turn off the teacher YouTube, so they don't care. They can still get to what they need to teach. They can still provide that for the kids. The kids are just not listening to music and watching SpongeBob SquarePants and, watching, anime and all this kind of stuff. And the first thing that happened to us, we got nothing the first 2 weeks. And then we got a trickle of, my kids are more engaged. I don't have this digital noise in my classroom anymore. So when you want to sell it to them, remind them that you're taking out one more thing that they're not going to be doing. It's, as a graduate of 1987, it was keeping that Hot Rod magazine inside my history book, during history class. That's not there anymore. We've taken that out of the prospect. So we just did it. Just do it. Back yourself up. We knew how we were going to back ourselves for doing it, and we knew we could provide the content that they needed in an alternate form that was safer for the students and safer for our teachers, and we could keep up with.
Thanks, man.
Thank you, Jeff, for using tech for a classroom management technique. That's huge. And I think that's to be commended. And that says a lot about your school and what's being planned and purposeful, even in a remote learning environment. Before Ray goes on, can I ask you one follow-up about your GoGuardian parent app? You said you had about 40% of your parents engaged in that. Can you talk just for a second about what it looked like trying to train them or stand that up in the remote world? Jeff, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. So what's really great about that is that GoGuardian gives you all the templates to do that. They actually give you the template to send out beforehand to prep your parents for it. They give you a template to send out once you've added your parents to it. We created a Google form. We sent it out and said, hey, parents, if you'd like to do this, fill this form out, put your kids' names in it. And then I went through personally, pulled them in the CSV import. Then I templated, sent out the email to them. And here's the link for the Android app. Here's the link for the iOS app. Tear into it. We've had no parents contact us about training. GoGuardian's easy to use. This is how you use it. The app is a no-brainer. It's just kind of like, okay, it's got 5 big blocks on the front screen. They go, where's my kid been visiting? What do I shut stuff off? It's just kind of we've had, honestly, and I'm not making this up, there hasn't been a parent context about it. I don't know how to use this app. It's just taking care of itself. GoGuardian has some wonderful training on all of their products. So that's taken care of for us. We send out that one email to a parent and we're done.
Jeff, you brought up an interesting concept earlier about, you feel like we're at the point where we need to shut everything down and only whitelist what teachers need. And I was thinking about the parent aspect of that too, because as a parent, there may be things I don't want my kid getting to, even if it's teacher approved. So do you have teachers and parents communicating about things that they do or don't want their kids to be able to have access to?
You know, we don't. I have to say we have a pretty good open communication lines between our parents and our teachers. We've done that for over the years, and they email them and they call them. You know, they have their extensions. They leave voicemails. Um, I would say we haven't really delved into that. We haven't, you know, like we in school we're pretty much blocking everything. I mean, it's kind of like if you don't need it, we're not going to be the ones to provide it for you. Now, by this giving them the parent app and doing the after school thing with GoGuardian, since at 4 o'clock we roll over to another deal. You can change the times, you can do what you want to with it, and we allow the kids to go to YouTube and things like that. Now we don't anymore. YouTube is blocked 24/7, but we were having, you know, second graders up at 2 in the morning watching SpongeBob SquarePants, and their parents didn't know that they had their Chromebooks out. You know, things like that. And so we just felt like, okay, we're not providing these children with the supervision they need to make sure they're getting some sleep and things like that. That's kind of why we started doing that. But with the app, the parents realize that they have full control of that. And back to that, what you're talking about, whitelisting, and we've been talking with GoGuardian some time, and I said, listen, I want to block everything, but I want to give the teacher the ability in their classroom that when they create a whitelist, it overrides our blocking. So that, you know, if a teacher feels like they need to show these videos from National Geographic and this and this and this, and we're blocking everything, that teacher can then turn on that whitelist for that 9 o'clock to 9:45 10th grade history class, and they get exactly what they want. And the moment that class is over and the teacher stops it, that whitelist goes away, and the students are back to the, you know, to the blocking of only getting to Google Suite and whatever they need from us. And GoGuardian is like, you know, that's something we're working on. We're getting that from a lot of places. And so we expect to see that June is when the date that they're giving us to see that. So,
Yeah, thank you for sharing everything, and hats off to you for personalizing access. That's amazing. I'm gonna go back to sharing my screen so Ray can take it on. Appreciate you so much.
Thank you, Jeff.
All right. So Jeff made some good points about, you know, kids at home, and some of that social emotional. I know that Trent and I have been talking, and it's hard to talk about the devices at home, the connectivity at home, and how much kids are online and not start talking about the social and emotional well-being. I didn't know, I didn't think this would be a tech conversation, but it quickly became one, if not before COVID, definitely in the midst of the environment that we're in now. And Trent, you had some good points last time we talked.
Well, part of that, Ray, was, you know, I watched a few webinars that were kind of national or, you know, across the U.S., different school districts having conversations about the social emotional side of what students are dealing with, you know, in a virtual environment. And I was keen to what Jeff said. Part of that, I think it was called Beacon, which was part of that observation of students and what they're typing in, going to online. And the thing that really, one of the webinars, they were talking about the age groups of students and some of the things concerning self-harm, you know, that they might be researching, because some of these kids have been out of school and not been around other students for over a year now. And there were just some real dramatic things that stood out to me from the standpoint of certain age groups of students. You know, normally it was your, you know, junior high school kids that might be looking at some of those inappropriate things, but especially the self-harm issues that have started to kind of come up. And I know, Jeff, I didn't get a chance to ask the question earlier, but just from your experience or anyone from the tech side, I know if you guys are running programs similar to GoGuardian or Lightspeed or, you know, all of those products, normally the tech person, especially smaller districts, they're going to be the ones to first see those red flag issues come up if a student were to be searching for something such as a self-harm video, or asking those questions. Now, I also like Jeff's standpoint of that there is already a kind of a line of communication, or, you know, just somebody is going to be notified other than the tech person. But I know, again, that's normally the first line of defense, are you guys that are out there monitoring this. And this isn't an 8 to 5 type job. This thing, I think Jeff mentioned, you got kids online at 2 o'clock, they might not be studying, but I know virtual in the way school is being done, a lot of kids might prefer to work from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock on their work. So that's, I kind of wanted to get some feedback from you guys as to, what are some of the things y'all had to deal with over the year, or have y'all noticed? What worries me even more is hearing the term or the statement that younger students are beginning to show up with some of these red flag searches online. And just wanted to hear from some of y'all as to what your thoughts were. And Jeff, you could address that also. I know we kind of moved on, but still, I'd like to hear from you.
I'll tell you that one of the largest searches we see probably 7 or 8 a week of the suicide hotline number. And that's one that kids will look up. Seriously, 7, 8, 9, 10 times a week, we'll see kids from every age group, usually starting around 3rd grade, 4th grade. That's where we start seeing it heavy in the high school. During this pandemic, we've seen it a lot, quite a number of them. It automatically triggers an email of that alert to the principal and to our social worker, so that they can actually address that. Sometimes it could just be for a paper or something like that. It's a false positive, but you never know. We've actually put in some new ones now for self-harm and cutting. Cutting seems to be a big thing that students that they do. They harm themselves. We've had quite a few of those come through. Kids researching. It's interesting how the GoGuardian has got some neat stuff going on, and there's some other ones that have some really neat AI out there also, watching for kids looking for antiseptic and how to clean wounds and things like that. That goes right along with just something to look up. And what's great about GoGuardian that I didn't get to tell you is when you get that alert, it also gives you the 20 before and the 20 after, so that you can go in and say, was this a false positive? Was this kid, oh, they were doing a report on suicide, or oh no, this student has been searching something leading up to this and kept searching afterwards. So that's a really neat feature of GoGuardian.
Okay, well, and I guess the other statement that stood out is that the burnout aspect for technology coordinators or directors who, again, we're the front line as to some of these safeguards that take place in districts. And I know there's been comments, again, it's a 24-hour job now that we've gone virtual. So that was just some of the things that I wondered about as a group. Is that, something other districts are facing, other individuals, and is there some burnout that's occurring? And if somebody wants to jump in, fine, but if not, yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there. That's something I've noticed.
If you're not jumping in, I definitely have seen, I think all aspects of education. I can't speak for the tech side. I know in talking with administrators, they've seen an increase in the amount of teachers who have immediately resigned on point more this year than they ever have. And I think the burden is shared. I think when we see pain points, you see it all the way across. And I can't imagine no one's saying it now, probably because we're recording. But I believe there's, Trent, whether or not they're saying it now, I believe there's probably pain points across the gamut. I'm sure you'll get after calls on the webinar if you don't get them now. I think to flip I don't know, I'm gonna give a little bit of wait time to see if anybody wants to weigh in on that before I move on. I think go ahead, Jeff.
I'll go ahead and just say, I mean, I've been on here, so I'll just say my anxiety level this last year has been the highest in my life. So, and it's something I worry about my team, because we don't think about it. I worry about our teachers a lot. And I had to tell you, our staff here, our superintendent and everything, they really do. We have a lot of meetings about self-care, because that's a real big one. And it's not just about monitoring our students. It's kind of keeping an eye out. We're that level of defense too, watching to see how our teachers are handling, the stress, and not just teachers. custodians, maintenance people, everybody. This has been really rough for a lot of folks, and the anxiety level has been pretty high. So, and I can tell you, just for me personally, it's I've had a higher anxiety level this year than I've probably ever had in my career. So, yeah, that's a really big deal.
I like to see the results that are coming in on the catapult screenings right now. That would be some data I'd love to get my hands on. But so in thinking about some of these things, I'm going to flip, not to increase your anxiety. This isn't, but it's kind of like increase your anxiety, or what can you do to protect your anxiety? This is one of those conversations, especially when we talk about Beacon. There are some other ones that may be just the banana and not the whole suite, like Jeff said, like Gaggle is out there. Another one out there is Bark. You hear it being used sometime in conjunction with some of these other tools. And you really start thinking about, there's that script where we are to provide services. For a long time, we realized what kind of data that we're sending off to these vendors. It may be one of those conversations that keep us up at night, especially when you think about how many apps you have in your organization. And we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. But even when you think about some of the things that we just discussed, those are pretty sensitive topics. So we're no longer just talking about first name, last name, date of birth, right? We're talking about first name, last name, mental health, whether or not they're suicidal. And this is all information that you're collecting. So once you put something like that on your system, not only you're responsible for reporting it up and out, you also have a responsibility to protect it and keep it safe. And I came across a couple of things that I thought you all might think was interesting. I'm going to share my screen. So in the PowerPoint, there is this article that's posted by K-12-6, and that may not ring a bell right at first, but it is the same organization. If you've ever seen like a cyber incident map, where it shows all the pinpoints on the map that talks about the breaches that have been posted. And what's really nice about it, I don't think it's all inclusive, but what I do like about it is he does, his name's Doug Levine, and he does some research at the end of each year that kind of summarizes what he's seeing in the breaches that he's reporting up. And I kind of highlighted it on page 6, and he's talking about for the second year in a row, what they're seeing in the data breaches that are being reported is 75% of them are vendor related. And the number of vendors that we have in the district keep going up. As we move to the cloud, that's a vendor, right? That keeps going up. So it makes, it may not be worse. It may just be a correlation of the services that we're now contracting outside of house, but it definitely opens up that conversation as far as like, if that's true, how, I think there's that conversation, like, how are you handling vendors? Brooke and I out at Wilbur Mills just had a conversation yesterday about how should we handle teachers who have third-party apps, which may not be that different than the website conversation that Jeff just shared. And I thought I might share some resources out there that you might be interested in. So we have compiled a lot of these resources if you've never been to one of our privacy workshops. And you might find this really helpful in having these conversations with your staff. You may already have these in place. We have a couple of districts. Joel Dean's on the call. That was, I've had a lot of these conversations with him as well. But one, there's a privacy module, and you may not have time to watch all this for an hour and a half, but I think there's 2 really key tools in here. If you want to, it's there. If you've never been to it, it's worth an hour and a half. And it's really for everybody, not just for, I won't say everybody, it's for district administration. It's for you. It's not for your teachers. It's for you. It's for district offices, principals who might be anybody who's involved in the contract part of, technology or agreements. But there's a couple things in here that I want you to kind of just think about this, because these are things that could protect you. One of them is this SDPC National Privacy Agreement. And I talk to techs every now and then. They're like, Ray, the legalese wears me out. The legalese wears everybody out. So but that doesn't mean that you don't need to have a standard privacy agreement. And here's what I see that comes through my office. Every once in a while, a tech will reach out to me and say, hey, Ray, can you look at this privacy agreement and let me know what you think? Bruce Watson's hit me up. And I'll tell you this much right now. If you're signing an agreement that came directly from the vendor, that agreement was written to protect the vendor, not you. That is 100% the fact. Like if they send you a standard agreement and you're just going to sign it, send it off, get it going so that you can have the paperwork and have the tool in your district, that piece of paper, I would almost guarantee doesn't protect you or your district at all. If anything, it removes liability from the vendor and puts it all on the district. And that's kind of scary. And if you put all these things together, there's a ton of vendors. That means there's a ton of vulnerabilities. And so having a standard agreement, so that's the key. So at the department, we do this. So this is something like I learned on the job. We did not have this when I worked in the field. But we got so tired of reading every year agreement. We asked the vendors to sign ours. And so there is a standard agreement. You may not have ever heard of this group. It stands for Student Data Privacy Consortium. It's a reputable group that has created what they call a DSA. Sometimes you hear it called a DPA for the Data Privacy Agreement. This is written for a district, by a district. It comes out of Cambridge, is the guy's name, Steve. The whole group put this together with their legal minds. You have a standard template here. I would go through it, make it your own. This would involve people bigger than you, but in collaboration, like it's something that you could bring as part of like, this is how we could do this better. And it's something that is good practice. It's not more than good practice. Like this protects your district. It's like that first line of defense that Jeff was talking about as far as filtering, as far as data breaches. This is like a first line of defense to protect you from a data breach when it comes to your vendors. Because if your data leaks, you want to make sure that you're protected and you guys have a safe job, and you need to make sure that your students' data are safe. And this is one of those things, like have an agreement that is watching out for you and not just watching out for your vendor. And having an agreement that you don't have to reread. It's painful to read it the first time, but when you get used to it, does that make sense? Like when you get used to it, it's not as painful. Like I read this part, I know what these sections are, and you get used to where it is. And then you're not having to teach yourself every time you see it. Another really good one is the other big conversation that we get a lot is how do you vet third-party apps from teachers? And some of you have a really good strategy to do this. I've heard different things. Some of you only let teachers use what's contracted by the district, and that is your policy. Like the apps that you use, and you may manage this through ClassLink or something like that. That's your use policy, right? That's what you. Some of you don't have that. Some of you have let teachers use any apps that they want, and some of you are growing more nervous because you don't know what's going out there. And so one of the suggestions is to manage it. Like how do you find a way to manage it that is doable? One of the suggestions that's out there, we have a sample app evaluation form. It's if you don't already have a tool in place, this may be a place to start. It's a simple Google form you could put on your intranet for teachers to access. They fill out the form. It's really simple. They fill out the form and they submit it up. You get a notification, and they should have already pre-vetted it. So we asked them things like, has this been approved by iKeepSafe? And we give them the link so they can go check it out. Has this been approved by Student Privacy Pledge, which is another national organization that lawyers vet these things for you, okay? And then we asked them, what's the rating on Common Sense Media privacy evaluations? Once they submit that to you, you're gonna have a pretty good feeling of where this app stands. And the evaluations are pretty good. And they have, now I don't know that it keeps you 100% safe, but at least then you have some data to make a decision. And it's really something that more than just the tech can manage. It could be a committee, it could be, if you have ed tech folks that are available in your district that can manage this, it is those kinds of things. And once it's a Google form, So you just go through the list. Once it's approved, teachers don't have to keep submitting. They can say this is already approved. You can keep it up. You can think about different kinds of things that you can manage it. This may not be the solution for you, but it is like that conversation to be thinking about. Vendors are a huge vulnerability, whether it be, we were just talking about one this morning. Drawing a blank right now. Maybe someone from the ACTC group can throw it in there. But it's something to be thinking about. A data privacy agreement, vet these vendors before. So it's not like the wild west. You don't have to do it all, but these are some things that you may not have known was out there, but could help you in your privacy journey. So just want to put those tools out there, put my name out there if you ever have questions. And I don't know, y'all can throw questions out there right now if you have any, but I wanted to share those.
Awesome. Okay, guys, if you want to interrupt me, you can. If not, I'm going to move on. And I think what Ray has shared, sometimes we forget to think about. And gosh, mine was 20 years ago, Don, but I had that responsibility. It just looked different. But my leadership would have expected me to know and be safeguarding these things. So we're just trying to share out things with you, whether or not, whatever stage of the ballgame you're in, we're just trying to help you know there's resources available for you to take and to shore up and protect your students.
No doubt. And to kind of reiterate what Ray was talking about, right now, with all the ESSER money that's floating around the country, vendors are coming out of the woodworks. And as Ray said, they're not looking out for your best interest, whether it be privacy or contractual obligations that you're held to. So be very cognizant of that. And if you get to a point where you're just really stumped, what we try to do is remind folks, number one, reach out to Arkansas School Board Association. That's what they're for. They're there to help you. We know the APSRC has expertise in-house. We have some expertise in-house. But for the most part, it's up to you guys to help protect yourselves and protect your schools and especially your student data. So be careful of those vendors because they're planning on most cases that you don't know or that you don't have the time to research or to read those contracts. And we see it time and time again. Fortunately for Ray and I and Belinda, we have 5 to 6 lawyers that are full-time ADE staff that we can lean on to help us navigate through that. And to be honest with you, there are some contracts that we have spent literally months trying to wade through all the contractual, just one word. And we've went back and forth just to protect ourselves. Well, you guys may not have the luxury of having several legal team members on your staff. So reach out to those entities that can help you wade through some of that. And as Ray said, there are lots of resources out there. All those privacy pledge organizations, they're working hard to make sure that schools are protected because there's a ton of student data. And I remember, as Mel said, back in the day, we didn't worry about student data. We didn't think anyone wanted it. Well, now they do. And for whatever nefarious reasons they want to use it for is beyond me. I know some of it's just for identity theft and some of it they sit on for years until they get a chance to pounce on it and use it. But as Ray said, take the initiative. Don't assume that anyone else is in your organization doing this, especially if you are the one putting your name on the contract with the vendor. Make sure that you check those boxes. We're not trying to scare you. We're not trying to make you afraid to do business with anyone. We're just trying to remind you, as Ray said at the very beginning, the vendor is not protecting you. They're protecting themselves.
And your
So
sales rep,
yep.
Your sales rep doesn't know. I'll tell you that right now.
They don't know.
Your sales rep is about as smart as you are. You probably know more than they do. And so they're usually your sales reps from your vendors, unless they're Cisco, if it's an ed tech tool, they're coming from an educator background trying to sell to educators. And when you start asking them these kind of questions, they're going to have to send it up. And when you send a contract, they're going to say, I'm going to have to send this up to my legal team. They don't know the answers to your questions. And they probably aren't used to people asking those questions. And if you have issues, like if you're having issues about somebody getting that support, or you feel like they're not listening to you, look, we have no problem saying, hey, you really should take a look at it. One of the things that may generate a little bit of support, it does take a little bit of time, but if you've never done it before, you might want to think about we share this in our security awareness workshop, and you'll see some of these come back around this year. We'll do another privacy workshop. We'll do another security awareness workshop. But one of those is creating a data inventory. If you've never done that, it will scare you and it will scare your administration. If you really can get people to write down what kind of information they're sharing and all the places they're sharing it. But if you don't have one, that means you don't know where that data is living, right? And we have some forms for that too. So you just hit me up and I'll get you started. And that, sometimes it takes numbers like that to generate the support that you need. And that's why we have those resources out there.
Thanks, Ray. You guys, don't hesitate to put your questions over in the chat box or just interrupt us at any time. I'm going to jump on something that some of you guys may have heard about, or some of you may not have heard about, and it's called the Emergency Connectivity Fund. And that is the $7.17 billion E-rate, I won't say lead initiative, but E-rate's going to be handling it. And this kind of alludes to something that Jeff talked about a little bit earlier, or someone talked about a little bit earlier, with E-rate maybe extending the reach beyond the typical school walls. So in the past, we know that E-rate pretty much funded all the connectivity to the schools, but it didn't really go beyond the edge. So this fund is developed to help us take care of those expenses that go beyond. One of the cool things, and we had a meeting with Funds for Learning, which is our E-rate advisor for the state, and they help us navigate through a lot of these muddy waters. We had a nice little session with them the other day, and they gave us a pretty good amount of information about the ECF for now. There's still a lot more to be learned. They're in the rulemaking process right now, working on all the questions they're getting back and all the feedback they're getting from the schools and the SEAs from around the country to learn more about how to better utilize these funds and make sure they're implemented and distributed properly. They're going to be designed to build upon and leverage what we're already doing with the E-rate resources. The equitable distribution is a huge piece of this. And we know that a lot of these funds are going to be applied to reimbursements. So a lot of your schools spent money after COVID began purchasing hotspots and/or devices with connectivity, just a plethora of different things to help you guys compete or battle the connectivity issues that we had around the state and still do. So the discussion we had with Funds for Learning, and don't hold me to anything I say 100%, I'm just telling you the conversation we had, is that the majority of these funds will be used for reimbursement, but they will also be used to help you navigate and/or procure things as we move along through the pandemic. Technically, we're not out of the pandemic. Even though Arkansas is at a different state than other states are at this moment, there are still other states that are a lot more locked down than we are, and they're still dealing with, some aren't even back in school yet like we are. We're probably one of the few states, as I said in another meeting, that is back in school and has been since August, but a lot of states are still having some struggles with that. So this money is going to be designed to help with that connectivity piece, the reimbursement piece. There's belief that it might even give a larger percentage of reimbursement for some of those funds that you've already spent, but we don't know until we see the final rules. This is something that we do know. The rulemaking process is going now, and it is believed that they'll have some decisions made by mid to end of June, and hopefully that window for application will open up then. So saying all that to say that could change. We'll learn more as you'll learn more as we learn more, and I'll try to share that as I learn more. There are not huge amounts of details with all this funding yet. There are 2 links here. I'm not going to read these links, but if you'll pull down the slideshow that Trent shared early on, he might want to share that link again. And here's one of them. It kind of revolves around the homework gap. So the impetus behind this $7.1 billion is helping us close that gap. So we know there's still lots of kids who do not have connectivity, or they have a lower quality of connectivity. So these funds will be utilized to help close that gap, if you will. It's also going to be available to schools and libraries, just like typical E-rate funds are. Goes back to the beginning of the pandemic, from our understanding. Funds for Learning is kind of our hand that's reaching out, or our voice that is talking to the SLD E-rate folks about the rules that they think will help be more impactful for the schools, K-12 schools. So right now, here's what I would advise you guys to do. Anything that you've purchased since the beginning of COVID to help you establish connectivity or to improve connectivity, kind of know where that information's at, know where those invoices are, know where those procurement contracts are. So that way, when the window opens, you'll already have most of that in hand. And that way you can supply that. They're going to be pretty flexible with how we handle this, because one of the questions was, well, you know, E-rate has a very formal procurement process. What about us doing it differently? Well, the understanding is if you procured your products within the parameters of your local and state policies, you're going to be okay. Now, if you just willy-nilly went out and bought stuff and didn't procure it the right way, there may be some questions to that. We'll learn more about what they're looking for or what's going to get you in a bind as we move forward. We're estimating that about 765 million of that 7.1 billion is going to be a set aside. So for another project that's within E-rate or within those parameters, but most of that $7 billion is going to be coming back to our schools around the country. I wished it was all coming to Arkansas. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? But it's going to be coming back to the schools around the country. So this means a lot of money for us to get back and do something else with. As you all know, excuse me, when you get reimbursements from E-rate, typically you can use them for other things or other purchases that are less restricted. We don't know all the details yet on how restricted they'll be on those reimbursements, if they will at all, but they're going to give that in the rules as well. I'm trying to look through my notes here. There's also this discussion about E-rate funding being able to be used for cybersecurity and protection from that. So we're hoping that we'll get some clear guidance on how you can use E-rate funds for the cybersecurity piece. As we said, we've never had that connectivity beyond the campus before with E-rate. And then they gave us a waiver that said, hey, you know, if you need some remote spots for your students to connect, let's do that with those E-rate funded devices. They did that for us after the pandemic started, and they made emergency waivers on that. Well, moving forward, we're hoping that this sets a new trend in using the E-rate funds for us moving forward with connectivity beyond the campus, whether it be hotspots or devices with built-in connectivity, whether it be tablets, Chromebooks, laptops, those kind of things. There may be some possibility to get some of those devices funded. Saying all that to say, I'm not telling you to wait until July to make your purchases, because I know, and you know, that we went through a year of a lot of latency on getting products. And boy, oh boy, some of you may still be waiting on products, especially if you ordered Lenovo products. So don't wait till July to make those purchases. Go ahead and make the purchases you need for the next school year or moving forward as you see fit based on the best of your knowledge. And we'll be hopeful that those products can or possibly be built into some of those additional E-rate funds that are available. Naturally, you can use your ESSER funds pretty flexibly with a lot of those products and a lot of those purchases. I talked to a couple of vendors this week. In fact, I was on the phone to a vendor just a few minutes before this meeting. And I said, what's our wait time right now? And he said, it depends on the product. Most products, he said, 2 to 4 weeks, some of them 2 months. It just depends on the product and specifications. Quantity also matters on what you're ordering as well. So if you're ordering a 5,000 to 7,000 unit purchase, that might take a little longer. So be mindful of that as you're moving forward and as you're trying to figure out ways to utilize your ESSER funds. There was also a question about, well, can we use ESSER funds and E-rate funds? We're going to get more guidance on that. And I don't have a definitive answer on that, but I'm thinking and hoping, fingers crossed, that you can use your E-rate funds and the part that is offset, like the 20% or 15 or whatever percent you owe. We believe that you're going to be able to use the ESSER funds to pay for that offset or the discounted, non-discounted amount. So keep your eyes and ears open, be listening to what you hear about E-rate in the ECF, the Emergency Connectivity Fund, and we'll get you more information as we learn it. And we know that there are a lot more questions right now than answers, but I wanted to give you guys a heads up on that because that's something that's big time on my radar. And as we move forward, I want you guys to have a little bit of that in the back of your mind so we can get the word spread out there. So it's not a surprise to us that we have access to a portion of these $7.1 billion. I don't have a lot of answers, like I said, but keep your eyes and ears open.
So Dawn, I guess if there's not any more discussion around that, guys, we want you to jump in if you have anything you want to talk about related to the ECF and E-rate funds. So
yes. Sorry. On the GoGuardian and ESSER funding, is that for if we just wanted to start it as a new subscription, or can we use ESSER funding to renew a GoGuardian purchase?
So ESSER funds can be used to pay for anything back to about March the 13th. So if you're moving forward, and I believe it was Lucas that asked the question, and you have a new contract or a new year coming up with GoGuardian, you can utilize your ESSER funds to pay for those moving forward, to help pay for those, because that is for student safety, monitoring, and continuity of learning, but ultimately for student safety. So yes, moving forward, you can't go back and use ESSER funds to pay for things prior to March the 13th, I believe. But yes, Lucas, anything moving forward for now within the ESSER window, if you will, you can use those ESSER funds. I think ESSER 3 round goes all the way out to 2024. I think that's September 2024 that we have that window. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
You bet.
any other comments or questions related to our previous discussions? Well, Don, so I get the elephant in the room slide here.
They let us off easy, Mel. They're fixing to get you.
Yeah. So all of this is great, as if student safety and spending dollars, a lot of them, isn't enough to be involved. How do we as technology leaders add value to the discussion at the level it needs to be at? And so Don, is there anything you want to say before I just plow right into this?
Yes, I will. So one of the big questions we talk about all the time in our technology groups, whether it be at APSRC meetings, ACOT, HISTE, AIM, ARCST, any of those meetings we talk about, we're always of that mindset that, man, I never get a seat at the table, or I'm never invited by the superintendents or the tech coordinators, not tech coordinators, instructional coordinators, or those people that are making the high level decisions, and we need to get a seat at the table. Well, we had a great conversation earlier this week, or it was last week. Sorry, I'm like Ray. I don't know what day it is, but we had a great discussion about what are some strategies that you guys are doing in the field to get yourself a seat at the table. I know what I did. Trent knows what he did. Kendall knows what he did. Mel knows what she did to get ourselves a seat at the table. And it wasn't just an open door invitation. We had to do some things to put ourselves in a position where we got invited to the table more frequently. Now, we weren't always there, but we want to have a discussion that is kind of an open door discussion here. What are you doing to be recognized or to be a part of that bigger decision-making process? Now I'll let Mel kind of carry it from there.
Yeah, I mean, like many times, so like I've been in a small district and I've been in a big district. And then like Dawn, I've been at the state. And so there were times that I felt like I missed a napkin planning meeting or two when I would get engaged in it. Like there would be 2 or 3 decisions that would be leading the 4th decision already made. And so it's not that I needed to know all or be all, but I could have added a lot of value to the discussion. Or better yet, I could have coordinated it, because sometimes I spend all my time trying to coordinate things that were uncoordinated because they weren't planned right. And so I guess I had a blessing in the very early onset of my career in the 90s to have a leader who valued that. And so I realized that that's not always the case. And so I guess what I want to talk, have you guys share is, what have you done to be able to engage yourself in the process of planning, the strategic planning pieces? What are things that you're leveraging that works for you and your organization, recognizing that there's one thing that connects, well, there's two things that connect all of us together that's in this Zoom today. We love technology and we love kids. And so what do we do knowing that the rest of us are not a cookie cutter of each other? Some of us have education backgrounds. Some of us are purely tech backgrounds. How do you make that work to leverage and add value to what's going on in your school around technology leadership? Y'all don't talk over each other.
Well, I'll jump right in there. I always do. I think the biggest thing to do is remember that you're the one that does what you do, and that everything that's running in a school district right now comes through our department. And don't be afraid to go ahead and speak up and give them your 2 cents. If you have to actually go to the person right above you, I start with the principals and I start with the instructional facilitators, and make sure that I'm always in their ear and that they know that they always have my ear. And that if they need to run something through me, that's the best way to get into that door. And then I think probably like most of you, my boss is the superintendent, if you're the tech coordinator for your district. So if you can get in that room and plead your case and say, this is where I'm at, and that's the kicker. And I think everybody here will agree with me that we don't just read about tech, we have to read about education. And we've got to keep our finger in that pot and knowing what's going on. And what role we play in that, where our puzzle piece fits in that overall picture. So, I mean, it's really just promoting yourself, and there's no reason you cannot promote yourself in your own district, because you're valuable. You're very valuable. Look what we did this year. So we're very valuable people. You just got to remember that and put your foot in the door.
Thank you, Jeff. Kendall, I know you shared a good story with us the other day when we were talking about this, about how you went about it a little more indirectly. So would you mind sharing that with everyone, how you were able to get an indirect seat at the table, if you will? And Kendall was with one of the larger districts in the state at the time.
Sure, Don, thank you. Yeah, it was, 14, 15 years ago, I took a class. It was about hacking. And it was to learn what the bad guys do so I could do a better job of protecting our district network. And I came back quite excited about it. And I talked with our instructional technology person. Some of you probably know her, BJ Brooks. And I said, BJ, in one of our faculty meetings, I've got to do some demonstrations on this hacking thing and help the faculty understand why not to click on this link or why not to go to a particular website. And she looked at me and said, it won't do any good. Wait, what? What are you talking about? She said, they already expect you to know that and be able to do it. Well, it took me several days to get over my initial reaction to that because I was frankly angry. But as I digested it, I realized that I do in fact need to know a lot more than just technology. Jeff just alluded to it. I need to know about curriculum. I need to know about food service and transportation and accounting and all the facets that make up education, so that I can do my job, the expected part, setting up a server, establishing a network, installing software. They expect that, but they also need to know that I can relate it to what their needs are. And so it was through BJ and those conversations I had with her over several years that really got me at the table and allowed me to add my insights to the overall conversation. I'll finish it up. If you want to go to the table, you got to think of it like it's a potluck dinner. You got to bring something. And so and just your knowledge of technology isn't enough. You got to bring a second dish and maybe more. So think of it as a potluck dinner and bring several dishes.
And one of the key things that Kendall was talking about there was taking the initiative. And one thing that, and I see one of my former tech guys on here now, was to remind them that it's more than just about fixing things and making the technology work. It's about the kids. And I would take my tech guys to conferences that were beyond just education or beyond technology. They were more about instructional side of it. And I see Ken on here, and I remember taking him to see Ron Clark speak at a conference. And I remember after that keynote session, I hope Ken doesn't mind me picking on him here. After the keynote session, and Ken's a true tech man. He knows stuff inside and out, and he can see things that I can't even dream of. And he can see a whole different side of the break fix mentality. And I just always leaned on him to take care of things. But when he went to that conference with me, we were standing outside after the keynote, and he said, "Man, I really get it now. This is about more than just the technology. It's about the kids." And then Ken started taking in a lot more, and he started seeing a lot more and hearing a lot more. And not only did it make him a better technology person, but it helped him be included in some of the conversation, and teachers started to trust him and ask him other questions. And I was telling a group the other day, I said, you really made it in as a tech director or as a tech person when the teachers start bringing you cookies and donuts. And that's because you've done more for them than just go in and fix their device and walk away. You've gotten to know them a little bit. You might have even helped them with the situation with the kid. And I don't mean disciplinary, I mean like a technology situation or something a little bit bigger. And that goes a long ways with our teachers, because they're in the trenches and they're working so hard, and they're just trying to keep kids in seats or keep kids engaged. And when they walk in the classroom, they don't want to know how the inner workings of that technology works. They want to turn the switch on and it work. And you guys make that happen. You make it happen every day. But sometimes you give them that extra little nugget, just like Kendall said. You bring more to the potluck than just your technology ideas, and you build that trust and that camaraderie, and you start building a pathway to being at the table. So you may not make it to the table in the central office, but you might make it to the table at that school or that classroom. And that's a big step forward. And that helped me a lot back in the day. I know it's helped a lot of other tech people I know today and yesterday. And hopefully you guys are thinking in those terms that I'm never just call yourself just the tech guy or tech gal. That's not who you are. You're an educator. You're working and doing things to help kids learn. So never think of that. And I remember when teachers would say, "I'm just a teacher." No, you're not. You're more than just a teacher. And same thing with you guys. So if you guys have some other ideas, I see a bunch of people in here that I know are at the table, because I know you are. I'm going to pick on some of you if you don't speak up. Tell us something that's worked for you or something that's helped you make inroads and get you out of the server room. And I can wait quietly a long time. I'm a former teacher. Vernon Dubar, I see you're out there. Vernon, you want to share with us something that you've been able to do or help you make inroads? He may have me turned off. Margie, I see you. I see Vernon. He unmuted. Come on, Vernon.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Hey, I've been mostly listening today. It's good stuff. I've been one of the districts where I've been blessed to be at the table a lot of times, but pardon me. Sometimes you still get forgotten, but I ask questions. And the good thing about being a technology person, monitoring all those dashboards, you see what everybody is doing. And if you pay attention, things will pop up and you'll say, "What's going on here? I didn't know about that." So I'll go ask questions. And I answer the superintendent. It doesn't bother me to go in there and say, "Hey, what's happening here? And I need to know about this. I can't support this if I don't need to know about it. I can't help the kids and the teachers if I don't need to know about it." And I've had those conversations several times. I'm kind of a straightforward person sometimes, and that's what you got to do. You got to stand up for yourself. But but they don't mean to leave me out. They,
Right.
you know, it just happens sometimes. You miss one meeting sometimes. You just miss some things. But I had a meeting the other day with them, and I was, you know, telling them that I need to be in even more meetings, because when you need to get to know all your departments, like somebody has already said, because in just conversations some days, I'll hear them say, well, I do this and I do this and I go over here and do that. And I'm like, stop, wait a minute. Why are you doing all that for? And we have actually turned hours or weeks of labor into 5 minutes with software or another way to do it, because we were there and we heard about it. And I'm all about making somebody's job more efficient if I can, because you never have enough labor. And we've done that for several departments, but it's because we were there, we were available, and we were there to hear those conversations. So I reminded them again the other day, is, you know, I'll just sit there and quiet a lot of times, but I'm listening. That's what you got to do. And don't be afraid to ask questions. But anyways, and, you know, build a relationship with your superintendent. You know, I know a lot of guys, technology guys, I'm a geek. I'm just as much a geek as you guys are. I'd rather talk to a computer than talk to anybody. You notice I have my camera off. I hate to see myself on the camera. You know, I'd rather sit in the corner, but I have to get out of my comfort zone and I have to talk to people. But I know a lot of guys, they're great technicians, but they won't get out of that closet, and they don't want to talk, and they just don't want to know, and you're hurting yourself. You got to put forth your best impression. You know, dress up someday. I'm not being rude, but, you know, people take you as you present yourself. And if you present yourself as, you know, a geek that's only in a closet, that's what they're going to perceive you as. But, you know, clean up a little bit and go see the superintendent and present yourself every once in a while. Make yourself available to them. And that's all I have to say. I'll shut up now.
Vernon, that's good stuff, man. And you said a lot of things that are so true. If you do hide in the closet all the time, they do forget about you.
Yeah.
And they don't think about bringing you to the table. And that is a very critical piece of information that we can all take to heart. And that's to get out of the closet, go shave one day, put on a button down, and be present, be present, and be visible, so they can know that you're there. And you said something else. You help some folks save time. I mean, our teachers are always looking for ways to save time and energy. Our administrators are. And if you can show them how to do that, they start gaining that trust. And then they start calling on you to ask you, hey, how can I make this better? And I know all you guys, just looking at this room right here, man, there's so much expertise in this room. And you can save teachers and administrators hours and hours and hours of just mundane things that they do every day. And that's kind of what helped me lead my way into the leadership table, is doing we started doing just little bitty workshops, like little 20-minute, here's how to do something at the faculty meetings. I asked the principals if I could start doing that. And they're like, yeah, sure. Cause they're always looking for something to fill time at those faculty meetings. And then they start recognizing your face. They start realizing you're a real human and not just a robot behind that screen. And you can get a lot of way with the folks doing that. So I'll pick on Margie this time. I see she's unmuted.
Yep, you called me out, so
All
I
right.
guess I'll talk. I come from a different direction than a technology background. I came from the library and media. So we had already, when I started 20 years ago, 1999, doing technology, that's how I got in, was just like Dawn said, started doing the small little 20-minute, 30-minute PDs for the staff. And as it gradually grew, I lobbied to only have one boss, and that was agreed to by the board and everyone, that I have one boss. But the biggest thing that I find to keep your finger in the pot is that every week to 2 weeks, you make contact with every one of your principals. You make contact with all your maintenance and your supervisor, your food service supervisors, all of the supervisors, that you touch base with them and say, okay, what do you got going on? What is things looking like? your curriculum coordinator, our federal coordinator. Every 2 weeks, I make contact with each one of those, saying, okay, this is what I'm seeing that we're going to need. What are you seeing? What are we looking at new software? It is very important that you have your finger in every pot so that when you go sit down with your superintendent, say, okay, I have talked to, met with these people, and this is what we're seeing. And even though you may not be a direct person with facilities, you need to have your finger in the pot in facilities and understand electrical, water, low voltage. You need to understand all the parts about facilities, because that part is a big thing that and especially with ESSER money, because you can have facilities, new construction, and redoing parts of your buildings. And if you're not familiar with how that facility works, then you're at a disadvantage. I don't know if that's what you're looking for, Don.
That's exactly what we're looking for, Margie.
I have
Thank you.
had my finger in probably every pot in the school district, because this is my end of my 36th year. So that if you're a new person, find someone there that has been in your district for a while and talk to them about what has come before, because you may not know what came before, what made decisions happen, and may not understand why it did. But find someone that's older that can talk to you about it, because there are lots of people in the districts that have lots of information that they just sit back and never say anything to anyone.
And if you're always the person that's always telling them what they can't do, they're going to not invite you. When they're wanting to do something innovative or doing something really cool to help maybe make education more fun or more engaging, think of it in a can do or a yes we can mindset, even though in the back of your mind, like, this is going to be really, really hard or really, really expensive or maybe even impossible. Just try to go in with an attitude of, when they ask you, can we do this, instead of saying, no, we can't afford that, we can't do this, give them all the reasons they can do it and give them the information they need to make it happen. And when you start coming with that positive attitude and that positive spirit, and that just, they start wanting you to come to talk to them about the things you can do instead of the things you can't do. And I've seen both sides of that, and I've been on both sides of that.
Well, we're a school of innovation, or a district of innovation. So that started with one of our high schools, and it's moving across. And if you're going to be a school of innovation, you cannot sit back and say, no, we can't do that. You've got to come up with ideas to help your whatever school it is that's trying to do it, to move to that and have a positive. Thank
you, Margie. That was good stuff. Thank you, Vernon. I appreciate you guys jumping on. We put you on the spot. And I know we're getting close to time, Mel, so I'll ramble on for another 2 hours. I'm an old college professor. I can teach 3 hours straight without breathing.
Margie and Vernon both made me think that I had to think of it as I was not doing something to people, I was doing something with them. And I want to tell y'all, I was sitting here reflecting on, like, what made mine work the way it did, besides having that support at the top. That's a big non-negotiable if you have that. But setting up a technology steering committee and it being a regular meeting committee that had stakeholders in it, from administrators down to students. I had that diverse of people involved in our steering committee. And it also helped control chaos. Once the grassroots take off and everybody's really excited about technology, we can all be running 100 different directions. So we would process any new ideas through that steering committee so that they could scale, or they had coordinated efforts on the back end for support. Because I was one in a district, a 4A district. So I look back now, and that steering committee actually was such a blessing, in that it led to rich discussions around professional development. I remember the first year that we stood that steering committee up, that's when I learned that they wanted a summer institute for teachers. And so we put it together. And guys, I brought students, high school students that I was teaching to the table to help me with the Summer Institute and growing basic skills with the classroom teachers to grow their confidence using digital tools. And then the kids, the kids will always keep you current on what's best practice and cool things out there. They would every once in a while get invited to the steering committee to share out some really new technology that they thought would be valuable to enhance their learning. And when it comes from a student, it goes so far with a committee. And then I thought it was a lot of work because, I could have written a tech plan by myself really quick and got it done. And it does take more when you involve others, but on the back end, it saves so much time because you have that buy-in, you have the input, you have a process that you have vetted. And honestly, it builds the capacity where you're not the only one that knows it. You have others that can stand in front of the school board and talk about it. So I guess that's my link. Don, do you want to touch on that validation link that we put on this slide for them and maybe Ray can?
Yeah, I do. So I saw where someone, I think Vernon mentioned the CETL certificate as well. And Joel, I want to say, yes, absolutely. Ask them how you can help. That is always a good way, a segue into a bigger conversation with someone is how can I help? And I remember doing that a lot. But yeah, I shared the link on here on the slideshow with the CETL certification. And this is something that some of the folks with TELR are working on, and they're looking into this, and they've been pushing this work forward. But when you look at a lot of the leadership qualities of that CETL certification, that looks really, really good. And I can't say that'll buy you a seat at the table, but it sure can't hurt to have a little bit more of a official paperwork kind of backing that you are what you say you are, and you can do what you say you can do. So check that out and reach out to TELR, the group that works with that. Jared Morrison, I think one of the guys behind that. And I know my mind just went totally blank. Charlie Weber works with that. Kellen Taylor, they're all part of that group that works on that. So reach out to them if you want to learn more about the CETL certification. It's pretty rigorous. It's not something that just you go take a few little classes and sign up and you get a certificate. If you have CETL certification on your resume, it looks really, really, really good. So if you get a chance, check that out.
Vernon made a good point in that he said it helps him think like them.
Yep.
I think that's a pretty good point to make.
Yeah, there's a huge leadership component to that helps you understand the language and understand the conversation and why that conversation happens the way it does. So yeah, look into that, check it out. First of all, or before we go, and I know, Mel, we're getting close to time, I want to thank you guys because we had 54 people on here at one time, and that's a huge testament to you guys wanting to learn more and wanting to do more and be more in your professions. And I know that the small group of us that meet together and plan for these sessions, and we start talking, we start coming up with all these ideas of things that have worked and haven't worked in our careers, and we have all these great stories, and it's a lot of fun. So I hope that what we've been sharing with you guys, and Mel, thank you for coming to us with this idea to do this. You and your team are phenomenal. But this hopefully is something that you guys can use, and we hope that the information you're getting out of this, it may not be perfect for every one of you, but we hope if we've given you a couple of ideas or a couple of tidbits of information to make your job better, or hopefully just make your day better, we hope we've accomplished that. And we look forward to doing this more in the future. We hope to do this in the fall. We're probably going to take a little bit of a break between now and summer because we know you guys have super crazy busy summers. That's the funny thing. Tech folks don't take off during the summer. We work year round and work our tails off. And we're going to look at picking this back up again in the fall. If you guys are interested in that, let us know. If you're not, let us know. If you think there's something we can do better, let us know, because that's what we want to do. We want to do better for all of you guys. So for me, one of my favorite takeaways from this is getting to see a lot of names of people I've worked with for many years. I know Mel and I talk about how many years we've been in this business. It's a lot of years, isn't it, Mel? So, but this is fun for us.
We can't tell y'all how much it lifts us to get to, we look forward to this. This is the one Zoom meeting that we can't wait to be part of, honestly. And when we plan it, it's so organic, it would scare y'all. But we truly try to think about if we were out in schools right now, what would we need? What are our needs? And if we missed it, we're sorry. We're trying to think proactively as well. But I think at the end of it, we want you to know how much we value you. In case you don't hear that, Dawn and I and our team, we value you so much in everything you do, because we realize that our world would look totally different without having the leaders that are on this Zoom right here today as part of it. And thank you for everything you do directly and indirectly for kids. We appreciate you so much.
Thank you, guys.